Welcome to Stepwise with Dr. Bob. Let's go ahead and look at today's Minute Cryptic. Recycle threadbare jumper. So recycle would indicate normally to me an anagram indicator or maybe a reversal. Um, Threadbare seems like a word that is probably doing more work than just one word. It's a 10-letter word, but I see it as thread and bear, thinking that maybe there's something threaded. It's an interesting word. Threadbare. Oh, so getting rid of. Is there a three-letter word that means thread that can be removed from recycle? So it's bare of that. Or threadbare jumpers. They're a two-letter word. Thread. To thread a needle, maybe? What happens if, oh, we get rid of all the vowels. RCCL. Doesn't do it. Plus, you thread the needle through the eye. That doesn't mean that eye means thread. Thread is more like the string. Hmm, four-letter word. Well, a jumper, in electronics at least, is a wire. I don't see how to get wire necessarily. Hmm, am I missing a hidden? Don't see any hidden. There are backwards hidden. I don't see a backwards hidden. Recycle. Recycle. Maybe to cycle again. Rotate. Reuse. And there's similar words. I don't know that there's synonyms of recycle. I like recycle more as an indicator, but there is not a four-letter word here to recycle. Threadbare. What does threadbare even mean? I like bear as an indicator to remove. That's a clever way to get it in there, but I can't find any short words for thread. Maybe thread or recycle thread. No, it's too much. What if thread was to get rid of some sort of a jumper? What would the jumper be? Is the jumper the center part? Is the jumper? I would think jumper is something that goes across. So it'd be a cross. pair of words, but that that would sound like an indicator, jumper being the indicator, a threadbare jumper, but I don't see anything inside of threadbare, and threadbare is one word. Let's see. Anyway, this is an and lit, so we can't really use all of the words when we're cryptically creating this. This is not jumping out at me. I'm gonna say it is a par three, and I'm gonna start playing around a little bit. Par one. What the heck am I missing? That is embarrassing's too strong of a word, but I'm just gonna type wire since that's the thing that jumper makes me think of. A jumper's a bunny, a rabbit, a cricket, things that jump. Um, a jumping bean. This could be a definition thing. I don't know if threadbare has a meaning in other English speaking countries that I am just missing. I really don't see how this is obvious. I would have thought I would have come up with the obvious things by now. Jumper, recycle, threadbare, jumper. Like, I don't even understand the surface of this. It means I'm fearful I'm missing something here. Jump. What are the things that jump? Kangaroo, a joey, recycle, threadbare. Wow. I don't remember the last time I don't think I've ever taken a hint on a par one. Maybe getting there. What are the things that jump? I can think of athletes that jump. I can think of if this was like bean, like a jumping bean, I think I would have a question mark. Actually, when I think about it that way, when things are like a category of something, they often have a question mark. Like maybe a week ago, Superman, blah blah blah, question mark. Superman was a type of hero. So, was that right, or is it the opposite? An example of the thing. Anyway, I still think jumper might have a question mark if it was the definition, unless it was another. version of jumper. Recycle. Norwegian isn't a word, is it? Yeah, I didn't think so. Thread, bear jumper. See, there's 10 letters there. Even if you were like threading through it, you're just finding random letters through bear jumper that mean recycle. Let's see. B, E. I go back to the thought that I had. What is thread, and can I make it go away? Can I make something bare of thread? Thread could be like the inner part of something. I don't know that as a word. I don't know that as a word. If this was, if there were more words, again, I would think the jumper would be across two other words, something that jumps across. Clet, leth. Those would be jumpers for this pair of words. But that means the whole thing would mean that as well, because we're using all three words, and there's nothing that indicates this is an andlet, and I don't know what leth or clet mean. So I'm feeling like I just have a gap here. Par one. What am I missing? What am I going to kick myself over here? If I were to use this and look up the indicators, maybe I could just look at hints. Is this going to be a two definition thing? No, this looks pretty standard. There's an indicator in there, there's fodder in there, and there's a definition in there. Well, there's only three choices for there's only three choices for the well, if there's one of each, there's three words. There's one, well, threadbare. No, there could be more. Recycle was the indicator. That would indicate to me mixing up. If I knew what threadbare meant, that could be fodder that you have to replace, and then you anagram whatever you replace it with. So I don't love recycle as the indicator. I don't know that I could come up with a definition or a replacement for threadbare. And then the whole thing would mean jumper. And again, I'm really struggling to come up with something that means jumper. Jumper, maybe like a pogo stick. Um, the trampoline. Um, something that jumps. So if thread was the indicator, it would tell me something that kind of threads through or threads across. Thread bear jumper. And the problem is that's 10 letters. So it's not every other letter, but it can't be something that's longer than that because you run out of room. Every third letter doesn't give you anything nice. B-E-M-R. Bare means without, so it's void of it. I really liked the idea of making a word void of thread. If you threadbare jumper, you are getting rid of the word thread from it, but it's a 6 letter word. I don't know 2 letters for thread. I've glanced through jumper a few times. I can't even come up with a 4 letter word in there. If I was to come up with some random definition for thread, I don't know that I would find a good way to make that happen. And then jumper as the indicator. Jumper as the indicator says it jumps across. So if threadbare was treated as 2 words, adba, read. Read doesn't mean recycle. Jumper, if it jumps across. Tear, thread, the jumper across threadbare as 2 words would be adba. That's not a word. I mean, there's nothing I'm seeing. If I click on definition, I think I'm going to get either recycle or jumper. So let's try to back solve this again. 4 letter word for recycle. If you recycle something, you use it again, you cycle again, you bike more. To cycle, to loop. A jumper. Let's go back to jumper as a definition. Is that an outfit? Is that some sort of a shoe? What's a jumper? Is that like someone wears jumpers? Isn't that like a pair of pants of some sort? Well, this has gone on long enough. I just don't know how to dislodge myself. I can't bring myself to take a hint yet. And yet, I've pretty much thought of everything I can think of. Well, that's not true. I haven't thought of the right thing. I have this, I don't want to take a hint if I can get it without knowing what threadbare is. And yet, if this is a gap, I'm going to sit here and stare at this for way too long. All right, let's think about this one more time from the top. Recycle, threadbare, jumper. If recycle's the definition, I'm struggling to come up with a four-letter word that means recycle. If I think about it as the standard recycling, you use something again, you, yeah. Even if I try to stretch that definition, recycling might be biking multiple times. Cycle doesn't have to mean bicycle. If recycle was an indicator, that would mean rearrange. And then I think I'd have to know what threadbare means. I'd have to think of a replacement for threadbare. Recycle threadbare jumper. If I recycle the center letters of that, I'd get bead. That's kind of a jumper across there. But again, now I'm creating an andlet. Like if I use all three words, is there any way that I don't know what that is? Yeah, just took out the center letters of recycle. That somehow meant thread. Thread, if this was longer, if this made any sense, like getting rid of every other letter, like the letters that kind of thread through this. But you're still met with R, C, C, E, which isn't anything useful. Again, I really like my interpretation of making Bear do some work in terms of removing something. I've just not found anything to remove to make anything that remains be useful. What have you done to me, Angela Waff? Okay, let's one more time. Recycle thread that's bare. If it's bare, we take off its clothes. We get rid of the D and the T. Ah, there it is. I said rabbit a while ago. It's a hare. All right, I'm really glad I didn't take a hint. I'm glad I didn't have to know what threadbare was. I am really feeling silly for taking as long as I took. What was this? A half hour? Goodness, Bob. Come on. All right. You recycle thread that has been made bare, and I was taking bare to mean get rid of, looking for something to remove from something specific, not generically removing its clothes, its outer part. So we get rid of the T and the D from thread and we get HREA, and you rearrange that to get hair. This is definitely going to be it. All right. Thanks for watching. Sorry about that. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time.